Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki. Let's offer our prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Let's read the verses. Have copies. All right, let's start at 7.1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Sakta Manapartha Yogam Yunjan Madashrayaha Asamshayam Shamagram Mam Yata Jnasasi Tachrinu Mata Parataram Nanyad Kinchidasti Dhananjaya Mai sarvam hidam protam shudre mani gana iva yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajat ante kalevaram tam tam yevaiti kaunteya sadha tadbhava bhavitaha tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanushmara yudhyacha Mai arpita mano buddhir mamye vaishya shamshayaha mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashritaha bhajanti ananya manaso nyatva bhutadim havyayam ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupashate Tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham yat karoshi yadashnashi yajjuhosi dadasi yat yat tapasyasi kaunteya tad kurushva madharpanam shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati Kaunteya pratijanehi namhe bhakta pranashyati aham sarvasya prabhavo matha sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam bhuta bhava samanvitaha mattita matgata prana bodhayanta parasparam Katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha tesham nityatayuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te tesham evanukam partam aham ajnana jam tamaha Nashyami atma bhavasto jnana deepena bhashvata Mat karma krin mat paramo mat bhakta sangha varjitaha nirvaira sarva bhuteshu yasa mamyeti pandava yetu sarvani karmani mai sanyasya mat paraha Ananyena yogena mam dhyayanta upasate teshamaham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami nachirat partha maya veshita chetasham mayeva mana adatsva mayi buddhim niveshaya Nivashishashi mayeva ata urdvam na samshayaha. Translation. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always, without a doubt. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna. Let's continue our discussion on chapter 10, the opulence of the Absolute. No, Vibhuti Yoga. So the connection between chapter 9 and 10, if you remember, towards the end of chapter 9, Krishna was talking about the glories of devotional service. How even if someone performs devotional service as a matter of duty, he still benefits. And how performing devotional service is very easy. And how even if someone practicing devotional service for some reason, he couldn't continue, he falls down. Or those who are finding themselves in a situation where practicing devotional service is not possible, how even them, if they somehow or other take shelter, could be through prasad, could be through hearing, could be through chanting, could be through association, could be through just visiting temple, some way or the other, if they can connect themselves with this process, how they all benefit. So that's how the previous chapter finished. Now, if you recollect, Arjuna had asked questions about 7 different terms, Adi Atma, Adi Yagya, Adi Bhuta, all of that in 8.1 and 2. Since then, you never heard anything from Arjuna. So whole 8th chapter Krishna was speaking unilaterally, whole of 9th chapter Krishna is speaking, and whole of 10th chapter, actually till mid of 10th chapter, Krishna will again continue to speak. As we said in the previous class, 9th chapter and 18th chapter in Bhagavad Gita, that's the 2 chapters where Krishna's emotions hit its peak, because somehow he was waiting for an excuse to speak about Bhakti Yoga, because the first 6 chapters he was talking about different types of yoga. Sometimes we get asked this question, if Krishna himself spoke about these different processes of yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, in Bhagavad Gita, why do Hare Krishnas follow only Bhakti Yoga? You usually get asked this question. If it's not so bona fide, then why did Krishna speak about it? And if Krishna has spoken about these different processes of yoga, why are we stressing so much only on Bhakti Yoga and not on other types of yoga? The answer to that question is, yes, Krishna did speak about each of these different types of yoga, but what did Krishna conclude? He spoke about all these types of yoga and he says, by the way, Arjuna, forget all of this. You just take Bhakti Yoga. So the recommendation of which process we are supposed to follow, it's there in Bhagavad Gita itself. Despite Bhagavad Gita speaking about each of these different processes of yoga, that shows how magnanimous Krishna is. That shows how broad-minded Krishna is. He is still allowing everyone to somehow or other come in contact with him, because everything is still yoga, it still has a connection with him. However, between those 4 different types, there is a gradation there. Some is easy and some is difficult. There is certain qualification to be able to do Ashtanga Yoga. There is a certain qualification to be able to do Jnana Yoga, so on and so forth. Whereas Bhakti Yoga, it's such a simplest and easiest form of yoga, which even a little baby in the mother's womb can actually do. How? If the mother eats prasad, baby will also eat the prasad. If the mother chants, baby will also chant. Mother hears, baby will also hear. So it's so easy, no qualification is required, and it gives the topmost benefit. On one hand, you have all these laborious processes which one has to actually go through in order to attain perfection in each of the other types. Whereas in Bhakti Yoga, we see, by the way, even if someone falls down, Arjuna, Kaunteya pratijane hi name bhakta pranashyati, I protect him. And we were discussing how Krishna is impartially partial. He is impartial in the sense that everyone who comes to him, he is ready to give shelter. He is partial in the sense, as soon as anyone comes to him, he becomes partial towards him. Okay? So then, continuing to let out his emotions, Krishna now speaks about his opulences. Now, Prabhupada says when we talk about Krishna consciousness or Bhakti Yoga, there are three things that are involved. One is Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord. Second is Bhakti itself, which is love and devotion. And the third is Bhakta. So, whenever Krishna speaks about Bhakti Yoga, especially in this middle 6 chapters, you will see sometimes Krishna will speak about only Bhakti, like in previous chapter we saw. In some places, like in 7th chapter as well as in this chapter, you will see he'll speak about himself. In previous chapters, he was speaking about his Bhakta. In 12th chapter also, you will see him predominantly focusing only on the devotees, actually. So, whichever of these three items, three aspects of Bhakti Yoga which Krishna speak about, he is still glorifying. What is he glorifying? Bhakti Yoga. Okay, sometimes he says how great he is. And that is to say, I am so great. Can you understand how much more powerful Bhakti must be? Because it's conquering me. It's even more greater than me. In that context, he sometimes glorifies himself. Sometimes he says, you see, I am so great. And my bhaktas, they are able to conquer me through Bhakti. Can you understand how much more glorious my bhaktas are? Okay, so each of these three, Krishna uses interchangeably when it comes to glorifying Bhakti Yoga. In this particular chapter, Krishna is going to focus more on Bhagavan, the opulences of the Supreme Absolute Truth, or his glories. And the reason why he is doing it is, as we were quoting, Srila Prabhupada says, if I ask you to love Mr. John, you would naturally ask, who is John? Who is Mr. John? Prabhupada says that. But if you say he's such and such person, these are his qualities, these are his attributes, then naturally it will evoke a certain level of awe and reverence in our heart. It will evoke a certain level of love. So we would naturally go and make friendship with that person. So same way, Krishna is now going to speak about his opulences. Now Parashara Muni, he gives the definition of the word Bhagavan. There are 6 opulences we discussed in the very first class. Aishwaryasya, Samagrasya, Viryasya, Yasasashriya, Jnana, Vairagya, Yoschaiva, Sannam, Bhaga, Itingana. Beauty, strength, wealth, fame, knowledge, and renunciation. These 6 qualities or these 6 opulences, whoever possesses simultaneously and to the fullest extent. Only such person is called as Bhagavan. Whereas in the material world, Prabhupada says there may be different living entities who may be possessing each of these qualities to a tiny extent. Someone who is beautiful may not be powerful. Someone who is powerful may not be intelligent. Someone who is intelligent may not be renounced. But Prabhupada says, however, Krishna possesses all of these qualities and yet he is not proud. What role is he playing in the Kurukshetra war? Charioteer. So when Krishna says, behold my mystical opulences, sometimes you will see, you save 2 plates of prasad, you come and you see both the plates become empty. Behold my mystic opulences, Prabhu. Somebody just takes it fully. Krishna, when he says, behold my mystic opulences, there is no tinge of pride in it. What's so, proud of Krishna when he is sitting there driving chariot, getting kick from Arjuna to turn left, right, forward. So when Krishna says this, there is no tinge of pride in this at all. He is saying it out of genuine concern for the living entities. Like if Tiger Woods, for example, if he comes and says, I'm the greatest golfer on the planet, there's nothing so proud about it in one sense, if his track record is so impeccable. So when Krishna says, crude example, but when Krishna says that I'm the Bhagavan, I'm the Supreme Absolute Truth, I'm the one who is controlling, who created everything, there's nothing proud in that. There is a genuine honesty there. Can we understand how embarrassed Krishna will be? He was holding all of this, glorifying Bhakti Yoga, glorifying Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga. This is what you have to do. You worship on Paramatma, you worship on demigods. He was telling all of that, even though he wasn't recommending. But it shows how all-loving the Supreme Lord is. So in this chapter, the first section 1 to 7, it talks about Krishna's opulences and how understanding about Krishna's opulences is not very easy. We saw in the previous chapter, Krishna says, because Arjuna is non-envious, Krishna is actually revealing all this knowledge to him. And Krishna said, 9th chapter is the most confidential knowledge. However, if you read the first verse of this chapter, you'll find something interesting. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, this is 10.1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, listen again, O mighty armed Arjuna, because you are my dear friend, for your benefit, I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I have already explained. Come on. In previous chapter, Krishna says he has given the most confidential knowledge. And here he's saying, I'm going to give you something better. How do we understand this apparently or seemingly contradicting statement of Krishna? There is one instance where Prabhupada was interviewed by a reporter. And then the reporter is asking a question to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, can Krishna create a hill which he himself can't lift? How will you answer this question? If you say yes, then it would mean that there is something which Krishna can't do, which is lifting. If you say, no, Krishna can't create a hill, then it would also mean that Krishna can't even create such a hill. And the person thought, I have checkmated Prabhupada. Prabhupada says, yes. This is how Prabhupada responds. Yes, Krishna can create a hill which he himself can't lift. And he can lift also. So first Krishna will create a hill that he himself can't lift, and he'll lift even that also. So that's how Prabhupada answers that. So that's exactly what Krishna is saying. Whenever we study Bhagavad Gita, there are two wonders of Gita you can always see. Wonder, usually it has two connotations. Generally, even in a literal sense. Wonder is something, an object or something, or a feeling, whatever, that evokes a certain sense of awe in our heart, right? So that's one way of understanding this word, wonder. There's another connotation, slightly different connotation, wherein if you are not clear about something, you also say wonder. I wonder what's the weather going to be today. Now, Bhagavad Gita, interestingly, it addresses both. On one hand, Krishna keeps on revealing knowledge about him, knowledge about bhakti, answers to some of the most toughest questions you will ever come across. Why do bad things happen to good people? Very tough question. But then you need to come to Bhagavad Gita to be able to resolve that question. Which is, yes, you may be doing everything good, but that may be only for this life. What about the previous lives? You may be doing something good to the best of your knowledge. What about things which you were unknowingly doing wrong? So when we come to this understanding, then we understand, we are awestruck by the knowledge, the wisdom which Bhagavad Gita actually gives. At the same time, no matter how many times you actually read, you never think you have read it at all. How many of you have that experience? I have that every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. So what am I going to speak? No matter how many notes I make, I close, you look. I remember in my school days, so speech competition, year 2. I still remember the only time when I ever stood on a podium to give a talk. So I went to my brother and I told him, look, I have to give a speech on Independence Day. You please write something. So he wrote in an A4 size paper. I memorized, I was so confident about my memory. Okay, so I was like, yes, confident. Even if you wake me up, tell me anyway, halfway point, I'll continue with the rest and I'll finish. So I was so confident. Then I went. So the initial opening goes like, respected sisters, I was studying in a convent. Respected sisters, reverend teachers, and my dear friends. Today I'm going to talk about Independence Day, and that's it. It was blank. Exactly, this is how I actually got response there. Everyone laughed. Shh. It took me another 10 years to actually build that confidence again, and I went to speak only in the university. So point I'm saying is that we usually get this feeling, no matter how many times I read, somehow it remains elusive. It will always remain like that. Not only for us. Brahma's prayers, if you see in 10th canto, Brahma says, oh, Supreme Lord, it's no wonder I got confused, because Brahma thinks four-headed, he's very fixed in his devotional service, he does everything according to the rule book, so he expects the Supreme Lord to be Mr. Perfect. And here walks in Krishna with yoga tries on his left hand, excuse me, and then he could not even holding and things are coming out. It's mentioned that sometimes when Krishna plays with the cowherd boys, Madhumangal is very fond of laddus. Sometimes he'll tell Krishna, Krishna, look there, and everyone looks there. Immediately he'll take and he'll swallow a few laddus. In one instance, when he swallows 3 or 4 of them, and the laddu hasn't gone here, Krishna gave him a punch here. And whatever that came out of Madhumangal's mouth, Krishna was just catching it in his mouth and eating. Now Brahma, when he sees that, he gets completely confused. He's not my Supreme Lord. Brahma was very confident. And then obviously we know what happened in Brahma Vimohan Leela. But interestingly, in the prayers which Brahma offers towards the end, he tells to Krishna that, oh my Lord, it's no wonder that I get confused by lack of knowledge about your opulences. I seriously doubt even if you know about it. He tells that to Krishna. If you read the verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, it's mentioned, Anantasesh with all his unlimited hoods, he has been trying to glorify Krishna, but he can never come to the bottom of it. So the glories of Krishna, it's just unending. That's what makes Bhagavad Gita, the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, ever fresh, all the time. That's a boon that was given to Krishna by Sandipani Muni. At the end of Gurukul, which Krishna attends, Krishna goes and retrieves the son of Sandipani Muni from Yamaraj. In other words, he just brought him back from death. And then in return, the spiritual master blesses him. What does he bless him? Whatever you speak will remain ever fresh like a Vedic statement. And Bhagavad Gita is a proof of that, actually. So whenever we study Bhagavad Gita, we never feel that we have understood it enough. There is always something that we get newer and newer, something like, have I read this before? Many times. 2 weeks ago, there was one devotee who texted me, Prabhu, I attend your class, but I've never heard anything, whatever that you have said before. I was telling him, I also have never heard it, until I heard Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's. So I'm just repeating. So what I'm saying is, so here Krishna is saying that he's about to give him knowledge which is better than what he has given before. And what is that knowledge? Knowledge about his own opulences. Now in next verses, Krishna says something interesting. Name vidu suragana prabhavamna maharishya aham adirhi devanam maharishinam cha sarvashaha. Krishna says, neither the host of 330 million demigods, they know about me, nor do these great sages, they know about me. Why? Because I myself am the origin of both of them. Now if you read carefully, the demigods, who are they? They are very powerful beings. They control all the wind, sun, moon, thunderbolt, our sleep, everything. Prabhupada says there is even a demigod for batting our eyelid. If they take the control, you'll have a medical condition. Actually, you can't even close. So it's a problem. So we need cooperation. We need the help of all these different demigods. Now, demigods are very powerful beings. And if you see the sages, they are very intelligent. In other words, Krishna is indirectly saying, no matter how powerful you are, no matter how intelligent you are, you still won't know me. Why? Because I'm the origin of everyone. So that's what Krishna is saying, which means neither knowledge nor one's own endeavor is a prerequisite to understand Krishna. In fact, what to speak of prerequisite? It can never take us anywhere closer to understanding Krishna. Because Krishna doesn't allow us to understand him except through devotional service. So it's very important for us to understand that this is the process, and we don't need so much experimentation. We have tried reading Bhagavad Gita so many times. We never understood it until somebody actually told us. So same way, no matter how much knowledge we may actually have in terms of acquiring this information in our head, it's still not enough. It's still not going to be sufficient when it comes to understanding about Krishna, when it comes to putting this knowledge into practice. There is something more that is required. Introducing devotional service. So Krishna says in 3rd verse, he who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the supreme Lord of all worlds, he only undiluted among men is freed from all sins. Now in 10.3, Krishna says, what is the partial result of knowing this knowledge? And what is it? We become free from all the sins. If you read the Sanskrit, sarva papai pramuchyate. Okay, so 10.3 talks about the partial result of acquiring this knowledge about Krishna's opulence, which is we become freed from all the sins. Now, what is the complete result of knowing about Krishna? That Krishna will reveal in 10.7. He'll say devotional service. One who knows about me, naturally he'll engage in my service. We would all want to serve that supreme person. We all want to look at like that ideal, Australian idol, or rather, we want to look for some celebrity, some sports star, some movie star. We have fan club. Krishna is now welcoming all of us to become members of his own fan club, basically. So 10.7 will tell us the full result of knowing, understanding about Krishna, and 10.3 tells the partial result, which is we become freed from all the sins, simply by hearing about all of this. Now, I asked this question once to one devotee. Let us say, like in previous class also we saw, Shipram bhavati dharmatma, that was apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhag sadhur eva samantavya samyak vivasito hisa. Even if one committed the most abominable sin, he is considered to be saintly if he is fixed in devotional service. I asked this question. Let us say we can do offenses on 3 levels. Deha, vak, buddhi. We can commit an offense, we can commit a sin on a physical level, vak by speech, as well as buddhi by mind in a subtle level also. Usually if you go strictly by Garuda Puran, it says that if you perform an aparad, or not necessarily aparad, a sin by mind, the punishment will also come at a very subtle level. If you perform something on a physical level, the punishment will also come to you at a physical level. If you kill somebody, you will get killed back on a physical level. Okay, if you speak something ill about somebody, then somebody will slander your name. So that's how it goes. If you mentally actually try to commit sin on somebody, mentally someone will also be sending that negative energy to us. Sometimes you feel very down, that could be the reason. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he says something interesting. He says when you do kirtan, this is how he used to encourage devotees to dance. When you say kirtan, whoever dances, all their sins go away. And where do they land on? Those who don't. Can you imagine the amount of enthusiasm it will generate? And then naturally, so if you look at I was talking to some of his disciples in Mayapur, so when they dance, they'll say like this, which means let all my sins go towards you. And they have this own subtle game which they actually play. So when we do any sinful activity, we are supposed to get on each of those respective levels. However, in bhakti, we actually see, even if one commits the most abominable sin, let's say somebody kills somebody, if he's fixed in devotional service, now devotional service, we can perform 9 different types. Okay, even remembering is one. My question is, how is it remembrance, which is actually done on a subtle level, is counteracting something which is done on a gross level, which is killing? You get my question? And I got a very interesting answer. He said, what is the root cause of any sin? Avidya, ignorance. When we surrender to Krishna, who surrenders to Krishna? Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate. Only those who is in knowledge will surrender to Krishna. Okay, knowledge. That knowledge can be, Prabhupada was once going for a meeting, actually a class, and there was one reporter who was stopping him and asking him this question. So, Swamiji, who is qualified to go back to the spiritual world? And Prabhupada had only 3 seconds to explain. And Prabhupada is answering as he was walking on the stairs. He's saying one who is disgusted with the material world, and that's it, he just runs in. Okay, so even that is knowledge. Somebody may not have been searching for Krishna knowingly, but he may be practicing, he or she may be practicing. He or she may have actually developed a certain amount of disgust with this materialistic dealings. Have you come across people like that? People are not necessarily materialistic. They are pious, but then they don't know about Krishna yet, but they still lead a simple life because they got disgusted with all these materialistic pursuits. Even that is knowledge. Okay, we have at least figured out what is not going to give us happiness. What needs is the knowledge about what is going to give us happiness. Okay, so when somebody comes and chants Hare Krishna, even thinks of Krishna, remembers Krishna, somehow or other comes in contact with Krishna, he gets knowledge. And that will eradicate avidya. So the cause of the sin is gone. So when you do a sin, and when the root cause of the sin is actually uprooted completely, then he said, then naturally, why do you need punishment now? So that's how he actually explained that simply by practicing any form of this 9 form of devotional service, somehow or other if we come in contact with the Krishna Krishna assures that he will wipe out all our record, bad track record. Okay, so Krishna here he says, none of these demigods or the sages, they are capable of knowing him. And Krishna is saying because he himself is the origin of both. Now in 4 and 5, Krishna is saying, not only is he the origin of the demigods and sages, but also he is the origin of all these different qualities which Krishna lists: intelligent knowledge, freedom from doubt and illusion, so on and so forth. If you read them carefully, most of these qualities, they fall in mode of goodness. Now again, are these qualities good enough for us to understand Krishna? Krishna says no. Even I am the origin of all these qualities. Just like how Krishna is saying he is the origin of demigods and the sages, he is saying he is also the origin of these qualities. Nevertheless, none of this is sufficient enough. Power, intelligence, or any of these qualities, none of them are actually good enough for us to gain a proper understanding about Krishna. So let's move to the next one, 6th one. The 7 sages and before them the 4 other great sages and the Manus come from me. So Krishna is now telling he is also the origin of the different progenitors. The 7 sages are the Saptarishis: Vishwamitra, Gautama, Bharadwaja, Kashyapa, all of them. So Krishna is saying he is the origin of all of them. In verse 7, Krishna says, one who is factually convinced of this opulence, which is, he is the origin of everyone, and mystic power of mind, engages in unalloyed devotional service. Of this there is no doubt. Now this is the complete result or the full result of this knowledge, which is they will surrender to Krishna. They will naturally become a devotee, and Krishna is saying this is the topmost benefit of this knowledge, which is to surrender to him. When we know naturally who is the most powerful, naturally we will surrender to him. Many times we'll actually see, when it comes to knowing Krishna, reading about Krishna we will do, but when it comes to surrendering, we will find it hard. And we were discussing this before, that faith we need to have. Where do we get the faith from? Somebody asked me this question last week in email. Is there any difference between reading and hearing? What do you think? Is there any difference? What is it? Arjun Prabhu.
So reading develops faith with your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear, you are hearing the faith of another.
I'm a vegetarian, but you hit bullseye. Exactly. When we read something, we just get the knowledge. There is some information transfer there, definitely. But when you hear, we hear the knowledge, and along with the hearing, what do we get? We also get the faith of the person from whom we hear. Prabhupada says, simply chant Hare Krishna. But when you just hear that, it's just simply chanting. But when you hear from Prabhupada, from the founder Acharya, you will feel that conviction going considerably deeper. It's the exact same knowledge, but when it comes through the lips of the pure devotees, it has its own power. It has its own potency. That's why even holy name we hear through the lips of pure devotees, through our spiritual masters. So it's extremely important that we pay close attention whenever we actually sit in classes or whenever we even listen to our lectures through headphones. We need to pay close attention, because along with that knowledge we are getting the faith, and that is borrowed faith from someone else. Now when that faith is backed up by this scriptural evidence, where Krishna actually says, or you come across some pastime where Krishna, how he protected devotee, how he gives knowledge to devotees, so on and so forth, now that deepens our conviction. Okay, so this is important for us to understand, that we have faith, which is borrowed, which we get through hearing, through association, and that is backed up by scriptures. Then we get conviction. Okay, so it's very important that we take both, wherein this is Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam. There is a certain amount. Sorry, it's very light. That's faith plus scriptures gives conviction. So there is a certain help that we can always take from each of these different personalities who we come across. It could be Guru, could be Sadhu, and could be Shastra. And if you see the pastimes of the cowherd boys, they exemplify this faith. I'll tell you a pastime. When all the cowherd boys are there, and suddenly they are surrounded by this huge forest fire. If you read Krishna book, you will see it was a wall, literally. The fire was like a huge wall going from ground all the way to the sky. They just couldn't see the sky. And they were totally engulfed by this fire, covered on all sides, and it's slowly inching towards them also, and they don't know what to do. So they look at Krishna, and Krishna tells them, my dear friends, close your eyes. They had absolute faith in Krishna's words. All they had to do is just closed. You just imagine if you are in that position and Krishna tells you, close your eyes. Will we do? We may not. There is another instance in Mahabharata where after the whole Kurukshetra war finished, Krishna was there seated on the chariot. He tells to Arjuna, Arjuna, jump off the chariot. Now Arjuna knows Krishna is Supreme Lord. He has already heard Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna didn't tell to Krishna, Krishna, after you. He didn't say that. He just jumps off. As soon as Krishna takes his foot off the chariot bursts into pieces. Because all along, the chariot was actually penetrated by all of these different celestial missiles. And because of the presence of Krishna, they couldn't actually exert their influence. As soon as Krishna comes out, it just bursts. So that sense of absolute faith was there in the pure devotee's heart. We don't have it. At least we can borrow that through hearing, through chanting, through associating. So when we hear, we don't just take the knowledge, we also take the faith of the speaker. Now, next section, 10.8 to 11. It's a very important section, technically called as the Chaturshloki, or the 4 seed verses of Bhagavad Gita. Ramanujacharya calls these 4 verses as the heart of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, they are like the nutshell verses of Bhagavad Gita. Ramanujacharya says that. This is the entire Gita put in nutshell, these 4 verses. Likewise, we have Chaturshloki for Srimad Bhagavatam also. So these are the 4 verses, 10.8, 9, 10 and 11. Now, there is a structure to this. These 4 verses. 10.8 talks about the summary of the Chaturshloki. So it tells about, generally, I'll come to that shortly. So it speaks about summary of 10.9 to 11. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a famous verse that says, it's a simple verse, you can write it down. Krishna Sambandha, Bhakti Abhideya. Prema Prayojana. It's actually the other way around. Sambandha Krishna, Abhideya, Bhakti, Prema Prayojana. Doesn't matter. Now, reason why this verse is actually important is these 4 verses touch on these 3. Generally, our process of Bhakti Yoga, it is a 3-step process. First step is called Sambandha. Second is called Abhideya. And the third is called Prayojana. So this is first step in Bhakti Yoga, second step, and third step. Sambandha means relationship. Relationship means who am I? How am I related to the Supreme Lord? That relationship, that knowledge about our relationship with the Supreme Lord, that is Sambandha. Abhideya means the actual process. Process of Bhakti Yoga. So that's why Abhideya Bhakti. Prema Prayojana. Prayojana is the end result. Okay, what is the goal? That is Prema, Krishna Prema. So even if you take our Sampradaya, we usually say Radha Madan Mohan. He is the Sambandha deity. We say that. Radha Govindaji, Abhideya. And for Prayojana, Sri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan Ki Jai. So Radha Gopinath is Prayojana. Goal of life is Radha Gopinath. So Krishna is the Sambandha. So the relationship, what relationship? Who am I? What am I doing in this world? Where did I come from? So that relationship, knowledge about the relationship, that is Sambandha. Now, 10.8 verse, if you actually read, it says, Aham sarvasya prabhava matta sarvam pravartate. Itimatva bhajante mam bhuta bhava samanvita. That's what Krishna is saying. If you read the translation, it says, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Krishna is speaking about Sambandha here. Okay, so 10.8 talks about Sambandha. Not only Sambandha, the last two lines of the verse, if you see, what does it say? The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. It also speaks about the process. So, 10.8 speaks about Sambandha and Abhidheya. I am the source of all material and spiritual worlds, which means he is also source of all of us. So that is Sambandha, 10.8. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service. He also talks about the process. As I said, these 4 verses, it's entire Bhakti Yoga, it's entire Gita in a nutshell. Every single verse of Bhagavad Gita, you can put in one of these 3 categories. That's a good exercise for you. Okay, is he talking about our relationship with Krishna, or is he talking about Bhakti Yoga process, or is he talking about the goal? Okay, some verses where Krishna says, like, Aham sarvasya prabhavo. So Krishna is speaking about Sambandha. Wherever Krishna says, Bhaktya mam vijanati, I am to be known only through devotional service. So those kind of verses you can go under Abhidheya. Prayojana is Natad Bhashayate Suryo, Nasha Shankov, Na Pavakaha. Krishna speaks about all spiritual world. Or one who surrenders to me never takes birth again. So Krishna speaks all of that. So each of the verses of Bhagavad Gita, you can put in one of these 3 categories. One of these 3 buckets. Okay, but these 4 verses, 10.8 to 11, it's entire Gita in nutshell. Okay, so 10.8 touches on Sambandha, which is, I'm the source of all material and spiritual worlds. The wise who perfectly know this. So that is Abhidheya. It speaks about the process. Okay, 10.9, if you go. Machita mad gata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. What do you think this was talking about? Of the 3. Is it speaking about relationship? Is it speaking about process? Or is it speaking about goal? Process. Okay, so 10.9 speaks about Abhidheya only. Okay, so 10.8 speaks about Sambandha and Abhidheya. 10.9 speaks about Abhidheya. Is that the only thing it's speaking about? Does it speak about anything else? Where? So the wise, they take, if you read the last line, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss. So that's a benefit that's actually given. So that's also one of the effect. It's one of the goals that's actually achieved. Okay, so 10.9 speaks about Abhidheya and Prayojana, both. Okay, so 10.8 speaks about the relationship and the process. 10.9 speaks about the process as well as the goal. Okay, 10 and 11. Tesham satata iktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. So that was, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. And 10:11, if you take, Tesham evanu kampartam. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. 10 and 11, what do they speak about? Process. Okay, so 10 and 11, it speaks on Abhidheya only. Yeah, it speaks on only the process. 10.10 as well as 11, both.
But doesn't 11 say, I show them mercy, I destroy?
So then, what do they do? I read the whole verse.
To show them special mercy, I dwell in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance.
So then, with that knowledge, what do the devotees do? Yeah, so which comes in the process. See, of the 3, this is where we work on most of the time. We work on the process. Initially, we all know we are Hare Krishnas. Okay, so we are not going to go back. We all know very well about it. There is a goal that needs to be attained. Most of our work is in the mid-level only, where we perform bhakti. Understand? Whereas this is more about, why are we doing what we are doing? That answer was, like, maybe the very first Bhagavad Gita class or any class you attended, you were convinced. So Sambandha, we don't have much issue with. Our majority of work is in the second stage only, to achieve prema, the goal. Each of these verses, they actually also touch on, to a certain extent, he touches on prayojana also, each of the verses, predominantly. Okay, so 10.8 speaks on Sambandha and Abhidheya, 10.9 speaks about Abhidheya and prayojana, 10.10 and 11, primarily it speaks on process. And Krishna, interestingly, he says that somebody may actually think only if you have knowledge, you can go to Krishna. But Krishna is saying, no, if you seek out in search of me, if you just go out asking, where is the origin of everything? Krishna is saying, I dwelling in your heart. So Krishna is in each of our heart in the form of soul, Paramatma. Okay, so inside our heart, when he sees a soul sincere, naturally what will he do? He'll actually drive the person to go and take shelter of the process, drive the person to take shelter of a certain devotee. Okay, so Krishna is telling, you don't even need to have, so knowledge is not a prerequisite at all. Knowledge is not a requirement at all. All that is needed is simple faith. That's why of the 9 stages of bhakti, Adav Shraddha, we say simple faith, and that faith also comes by hearing. Simply associate, we take it straight away. And the more we associate, more it's easier for us. Otherwise, if we don't associate with others, we'll be associating with our mind. As we were saying, as soon as you wake up, mind will start your Bhagavatam class. In the morning, oh. And it's very hard after that. Once there's that, it just keeps on marketing you. Hey, do this, and everything. Sometimes it's interesting, mind will always say, do this. This is one, I was talking to one of our young devotees in our congregation. He was telling, Prabhu, I'm trying so hard to control my mind, but I'm not able to control. I'm just getting all these thoughts. I told him, just because you are getting a thought doesn't mean you have to act on it. But usually mind will push. Anyway, you came this far to think, might as well do it. But that's very wrong. That approach is very wrong. Because in beauty of Kali Yuga, compared to any other Yuga, now we should not misuse what I'm about to say. In the previous Yuga, any other Yuga, Satya, Treta and Dwapara, until, if you, let's say you want to do some pious activity, even, if you think of it, until you do that activity, actually, you don't get the benefit. You have to execute it physically. In Kali Yuga alone, any sins we actually have committed in our mental platform, we don't take the effect of it. As I said, don't misuse it. Because thoughts becomes actions. Words and words become actions, actually. So we have to stay away. However, knowing very well the elevated position of all the Kali Yuga Vasis, which is all of us, scriptures do give the concession that any thoughts that actually cross our mind, until we act on it, we don't take any benefit of that, or rather any sin. In Satya Yuga, if you actually do even a thoughtful sin, or rather a sin on the mental platform, you will still take the benefit of that. As I was saying, mental thoughts means if you have any bad thoughts, you will get a bad effect of that straight away. If you do some bad words you actually speak, it will come to you back. Again, if you do some bad actions, it will come to you back. This is true for all the other 3 yugas. In Kali Yuga, until the thought actually becomes the action, until the thought becomes action, you don't take the benefit of the karma of that. Okay, so I was telling him that just because you are having a passing thought, it doesn't mean you have to act on it. But usually we get pushed. Now, let's top that up. In Kali Yuga, even if you do some activity mentally, you take the full benefit of it as if you have done physically also. Okay, I know that. Okay, in previous Yuga, if you think of a pious activity and you do that pious activity, only then you get the full benefit of it. In Kali Yuga alone, if you think of a pious activity, even if you are not able to do the pious activity, you still take the full benefit. On the other hand, if you do any sinful activity in mind in previous 3 yugas, you have to suffer for that. In Kali Yuga, if you do a sinful activity in the mind, you don't take the benefit of that. You don't take the karmic effect of that. That's how merciful Kali Yuga is. Again, we should not misuse it. Once the devotees were walking in the morning walk and they asked, Prabhupada says, he turns back and he says, actually, Sankirtan devotees, you don't even need to follow Ekadashi. And Prabhupada takes 2 steps forward and he stops back, but don't take it, which means don't take advantage of it. Because Prabhupada knows we will do. Whoever wants to skip Ekadashi, they would say, Prabhu, I'm going for book distribution. So Prabhupada didn't want us to do that, commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name. So it's an aparad, so we don't take undue advantage of that. But otherwise, if we are to be punished for every bad thoughts we actually have, none of us would be here. I mean, what chance do we stand? Literally. Nothing. So in Kali Yuga, any pious activity, any devotional activity we do, even in mind, we take the full benefit. In Kali Yuga, any sinful activity, until you do it physically, you can still stay clear from it. But that doesn't mean we are encouraged to just meditate on, oh, I can't enjoy, at least let me think. No, because soon we'll be pushed to act on it, so better to stay away from it with all this safety net.
So is that valid only for non-devotees or for devotees?
For everyone.
In Nectar of Instruction, it is said that when you actually become a devotee, you do a little bit of thing and like back home you get huge offense.
There is a subtle difference between pious activity and devotional activity. There is a subtle difference between sin and offense. I'm not coming there. That's why I said, let's go to, because to speak about that, we need to first understand what is an offense. So this is not based on any Vaishnava Parad. Vaishnava Parad is a different category altogether. I didn't bring that in here at all. Generally, I'm talking about a scenario of a youth who was like trying to control his mind, but then he's just bombarded by all this thought. Not just a youth, practically all of us. And many times we get frustrated because no matter how much we try, it just keeps coming. You wake up, your enemy, sworn enemy, 10 years ago, you just pop up. How many of you have that experience? Early in the morning. And you think, why today, But that's what, on Janmashtami, you would expect Krishna to come. You get a nightmare. I mean, what to do? But for all of that, Prabhupada says, when we practice bhakti, the effect of how bhakti is actually going to act of all of those things, we'll discuss that in Nectar of Devotion. But for now, just understand the power of devotional service. Simply by even thinking about it, you can take the full benefit in Kali Yuga. We don't need to worry too much about all these negative thoughts that come to our mind because we are not acting on it. Until the point we act on it, they are not going to give us a karmic effect.
So if we get full benefit by just thinking about a devotional activity, do you get even more benefit actually do the devotional?
Each of the Prabhupada says of the 9 processes of devotional services, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, all of that, of the 9 different processes of devotional service, each one of them is actually capable enough to take us back to Godhead. So Smaranam is also one of them. Question is, do we have the adhikar, qualification to just sit and remember? Okay, so that varies. That's why when we introduce bhakti there, it gets a little complicated, that analysis. I'm not going down to that until we touch Nectar of Devotion. But for now, understand this much, that we don't need to worry so much about any negative thoughts or bad thoughts that hits us. We just keep going on with the process. That's the idea. Okay? So this is how Chaturshloka is actually explained. 10.8 to 11, as we see the entire process, Krishna, our relationship with Krishna, that's the Sambandha Jnana. The process, how we go towards Krishna, so that's Abhidheya, chanting, hearing, all devotional service, the entire process of bhakti. And Prayojana, or the goal of life, is Prema. Okay? And simply by chanting Hare Krishna, we can keep ourselves immune to all the negative effects of all these thoughts and actions. And simply by sticking to this process, Krishna guarantees ultimate shelter. Okay, so technically, Chaturshloki finishes with this. Many acharyas opine that Bhagavad Gita actually finished with 10.11. Now, don't stop coming for classes. But actually, because you will see Arjuna now acknowledging his understanding and his conviction from now on. Okay, so technically Bhagavad Gita is from 2.11. Krishna spoke very heavy. While speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Remember that? So from 2.11 to 10.11. Technically, that's how much Krishna had to speak to convince Arjuna. So it finished at 10.11 itself. So from now on, whatever question Arjuna asks is simply for the benefit of general populace. Now, Arjuna will nicely paraphrase his understanding in this verse 12 and 13. Prabhupada often quotes this verse, very important verse actually. Arjuna said, "You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original position, the unborn, the greatest. All the great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala and Vyasa confirm this truth about you. And now you yourself are declaring it to me." So now here, Arjuna, if you see, he is nicely paraphrasing his whole understanding about Krishna. First of all, Arjuna himself is saying, yeah, I believe you. I understand you are the Supreme Lord. And Arjuna is saying, not only you, all these great sages, Narada, one of the 12 Mahajans, all these great sages who are known for their knowledge, who are known as the big authorities in the scriptures, they are saying it. As if this is not enough, you yourself are saying it also. So Arjuna, Prabhupada says, Arjuna for the entire world, he declares the supreme position of Krishna. All of these sages that are listed in this verse, if you see Hasita, Devala, Vyasa, all of them, they feature in different sections of Mahabharata. So Arjuna had personally interacted with each one of these sages. Devala, Hasita, Narada, each one of them. Okay? And Arjuna, after 8.2, he's starting to speak now. So after 8.2, Arjuna speaks only at 10, 12, and 13. And this section, Arjuna will continue to glorify Krishna's position, and he would encourage Krishna to speak about his opulences. He would plead, actually, please speak more so that I feel more satisfied. I feel more convinced. Again, Arjuna is already convinced, as he testifies in this verse. But whatever Arjuna is actually asking Krishna to do is simply for the benefit of entire populace. And Prabhupada writes in the purport how pure devotees, they don't worry about just them going back to Godhead. Prabhupada says, Paradukha Dukhi. They are so much worried about other people. If you take even Shukadeva Goswami, he gets cursed that he is about to be bitten by Takshaka snake in 7 days and he's about to die. But if you look at his questions, he has this such deep, compassionate heart, and he poses all these questions. Oh, what will happen to all the living entities in hellish world? Imagine if somebody says, you have terminal illness, you have 24 hours to live. Why would you even think about other people? But that's what Prabhupada says, that's the softness of the heart of pure devotees. So here Arjuna exemplifying, and being his descendant, Parishit Maharaj also, you will see, he also exemplifies that compassion, the supreme compassion of a Vaishnava's heart. So in 14, he continues, O Krishna, I totally accept as truth all that you have told me. Neither the demigods nor the demons, O Lord, can understand your personality. 15, indeed, you alone know yourself by your own internal potency, O Supreme Person, origin of all, Lord of all beings, God of gods, Lord of universe. So here Arjuna uses 5 different epithets to glorify Krishna. So first, if you see, he's saying Purushottama, and Prabhupada highlights on each of those 5 terms in the purport. There is Purushottama, Bhuta Bhavana, Bhutesha, Deva Deva, Jagatpate. So using each one of those terms, Arjuna is glorifying the supreme position of Krishna. Now in 16, Arjuna starts to request Krishna to tell more about him. Please tell me in detail of your divine opulences by which you pervade all these worlds. It's mentioned in the scriptures with a tinge of sarcasm that even though the demigods, after they churned the milk ocean, they were gifted with this pot of nectar by Mohini Murti. All of them, they have actually eaten the nectar that awards one immortality. Nevertheless, they are always living in constant fear of the demons. If you see, you will see Indra, you will see Chandra, Varuna, everyone running from pillar to post. They are still tormented by lust, greed, anger, everything. On the other hand, you will see cowherd boys. They know that this huge snake, Agasura, it's a demon. They know that. One of the acharyas, they comment, they know that they are actually walking literally into the jaws of death. They know that. Still they walk in because they want Krishna to save them. Because they are always hearing about the glories of Krishna, they are so immune to death, they are happily walking into the jaws of death themselves. So the actual immortality is Krishna consciousness. The actual immortality is this knowledge about Krishna. Even Prahlad Maharaj, Naivod Vijay Parad Duredeya Vaitaranyad, Tvad Virya Gayana Mahamrita Magna Chittaha. He tells to Narsingadev that, my Lord, just by remembering you, my consciousness immediately gets transformed to the other side of Vaitarani, which is, to the other side means, which is to the spiritual world. My consciousness is fixed there, so it doesn't matter what happens to my body. I'm fearless. Will you say that to Gopinath? Can you imagine how much conviction he has? 5-year-old boy. He's telling that to the Supreme Lord. By the way, Lord, imagine, and Lord Narsingadev comes, he kills, rips Hiranyakashipu. First open heart surgery, operation successful, patient died. he rips him. And then he's telling, my dear Lord, my consciousness is always fixed on your Twadvirya Gayana Mahamrita Magna Chittaha. He says, my consciousness is fixed on Twadvirya Gayana. Virya Gayana means glorification of your uncommon pastimes. Simply by that, my consciousness is already fixed. However, all these demons who I'm supposed to be the leader of, he says, I'm so compassionate for all of them. I don't know what they will do without all this knowledge, so I wish to be with them to make them devotees. Prabhupada says that is the compassionate nature of a Vaishnava's heart. Okay, so this knowledge which we are actually gaining from these pages of Bhagavad Gita, they are capable of transforming our lives. Arjuna says in the first canto of Bhagavad Gita, if you read, Arjuna, he reveals the secret how he was able to kill so many soldiers in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Arjuna says, he tells this to Yudhishthira Maharaj, it's in Srimad Bhagavatam itself. He says that Krishna is just sitting there as a charioteer, as for namesake only. But sitting there, Krishna does two things, which nobody could understand except Arjuna, because he's witnessing it. He says, just by looking at the enemies, Krishna will pull out their enthusiasm to fight. First thing, you just imagine, right? Any activity that you want to do, you need a certain level of enthusiasm. You need a certain level of energy, right? So when an enemy comes right in front of them, the very conviction, the power to actually fight, Krishna, just by looking at them, he'll pull it out. He'll withdraw it. Naturally, they will feel they're exhausted. Second thing, which is very interesting, Arjuna says, just by looking at them, he will reduce their lifespan to microseconds. So Arjuna says, when I aim at a person, Krishna will actually look at the enemy. Just looking at the enemy, if a person's lifespan is if he's going to live for another 12 years, looking at them, he'll reduce their lifespan to only a few microseconds. And then when Arjuna shoots the arrow will actually enter, but actually they would have been dead by then. And then Krishna will look at Arjuna and he says well done Arjuna, like that. Can you understand the embarrassing position of Arjuna in that? And Arjuna is revealing that to Yudhishthira Maharaj. That Supreme Lord has gone back to Goloka. He says that. So you can understand how heartrending the situation would be. But basically, that's what Krishna does. Just looking at people, looking at the enemies, he withdrew their inspiration. He withdrew their lifespan also. Now for devotees, we can look at it positively. Whenever we come in front of the deities, whenever we pay obeisances, there are benefits that are given in the scriptures. Even what benefit we get simply by meditating on the form of Krishna. For example, we can discuss some other time on, if you meditate on the eyebrows of Krishna, scriptures actually says Krishna manifested his eyebrow for a specific purpose, which is to assist all the practicing devotees to conquer lust. So if we don't know how to conquer lust, just look at Krishna's eyebrows to meditate on the eyebrows of Krishna. And scripture says, Srimad Bhagavatam says, there are verses that actually says that will remove. Uddhava says, Krishna, if you increase the lines of eyebrows, which means what? When will you increase the lines of eyebrows? Actually, eyebrows, if you see, there are small hair, it's like a row of hairs actually. Increase the lines of the eyebrows means you raise your eyebrow, basically. That one you will actually see the lines, right? When you see that, Krishna, Uddhava is actually saying, when you raise it, your enemies die. He is glorifying him like that. So to kill an enemy, Krishna all he has to do is just raise his eyebrows and people will die. Even if you see how the whole cosmic destruction is actually taking place, Mahavishnu is there lying, Sankarshan is lying, Lord Shiva sits there and he meditates on their form. As soon as he sees a slight twitch in the eyebrow, Shiva gets up and he starts his Rudra dances. And when he dances, then the whole cosmic manifestation starts to crumble. Ananta says he spits the fire all the way. He's in below 14 planetary system. When he spits fire, it goes all the way up. And you also see the Samartaka cloud coming and inundating the whole universe, basically. So all big things happen whenever Krishna. But when we come in front of Radha Gopinath, we bow down. What happens is, it's mentioned that our ocean of material miseries gets dried up instantly. So whenever we come in front of Sri Radha Gopinath and we bow down, I'll share with you the verse this week. So when we come in front of Sri Radha Gopinath and we bow down, basically that's what Gopinath is doing. He's just taking away all our materialistic miseries and it's given, the ocean of material miseries gets dried up instantly. And he also gives us peace at heart. He also gives us assurance. Rather than his hands, there is a poem by or a verse, glorification, Ashtakam, Radha Kripa Kataksham, by Lord Shiva. He says, Radharani's hand has a specific benefit. If you simply meditate on Radharani's hand, it removes fear from one's heart. Yes, she is very soft-hearted, but she can remove all the fear. Simply meditating on Radharani's hands. I'll share with you a picture of Radharani's hand also, lotus hand. Beautiful hand. Just look at Radharani's hand. Scriptures say, all our fear will go away. You look at Krishna's eyebrows, all our lusty feelings will actually go away. You just keep on looking at Krishna, our whole material body will go away. We'll go back to spiritual world. So simply by practicing this process of meditation, practicing this process of bhakti yoga, somehow or other bringing Krishna in our life through prasad, through hearing, through chanting, through association, somehow we will reap all this benefit, which no other process of yoga can actually offer us. Now in 18th verse, Arjuna says, "O Janardana," again please describe in detail the mystic power of your opulences. This is very important. I am never satiated in hearing about you. For the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. Usually when we see any wonder of this world, you take Taj Mahal. First time I actually went there, it's quite big. You look at it, you are awestruck. And then second time you go, third time you go, you feel bored after some time. You always keep looking for something that will, titillate your intellectual pursuit, that will titillate your emotions a bit. Sometimes, we feel so bored just to titillate emotions, we watch horror movie also, At least let fear come out in my heart, something. Life is so boring sometimes, seriously. And we watch, sometimes have you watched movies, it's a boring story, you have read reviews and it's an utter failure, flop, still you watch. Come on, how many of you have downloaded in internet and watched? I have. Because we don't have anything that can give us that emotional satisfaction, that can fill the gap. But here Arjuna is actually saying something interesting. Vistaranatmana yogam vibudimscha janartana bhuya kataya triptirhi. Bhuya kataya triptirhi means even though I actually keep on hearing, I'm not feeling satiated. I can't just hear enough of you. Please keep on speaking about you, more and more about you. Now, usually if you see, this is a proof of Arjuna being non-envious of Krishna. The previous verse, 9.1, previous chapter's first verse, Krishna says, Arjuna, because you are non-envious, I'm giving this knowledge to you. You just imagine, when do you think, let's say you are envious of a person, when do you think that envy would hit its peak? Let's say I hate a person, and we have a common friend. The common friend will come to me and he will glorify about my enemy, correct? That's when we will see our jealousy hitting its peak. That's when we will see the envy hitting its peak. Converse is also true. When do we know that we are actually in love with the person? The more we hear about the person, more we also want to hear more and more about him. Okay? Rupa Goswami, that's why he says one KPI for us to know whether we are progressing in Krishna consciousness is, he's saying you can gauge by your eagerness to hear about Krishna. Now you can sleep in the class, it doesn't matter. At least you should be eager to come to the class at least. At least you should be eager to turn on to Mayapur TV. At least that eagerness has to be there. It's not about knowledge. It's not about how many verses you know. It's not about how many scriptures you have mastered. It's not about how you can speak. None of that matters. All it takes is just the eagerness to know. Because that eagerness is the symptom that we are getting rid of our envy in our heart about Krishna. The very reason why we are in this material world means we are envious of Krishna. Make no mistake. Prabhu, but I love Krishna. Well, you are in material world. But we can go back to spiritual world simply by hearing. Simply by hearing, it is the greatest symptom, which in the opinion of Srila Rupa Goswami and the other acharyas, that we are indeed progressing in this process. So, in answer to the request of Arjuna, in verse 19 to 42, Krishna would list all his different opulences. We'll quickly touch on some of them. You can read them. Now, Krishna speaks about 82 opulences in these verses, verse 19 to 42. And if you see, when I came in contact with Bhagavad Gita, I came in contact with the Bhagavad Gita only in Australia, in Adelaide. I used to go into depression cycle, my karmic life. And I wouldn't know what to do with that. Usually every Thursday. I'll go and I don't know what to come. By the time weekend finishes, I'll be like, okay, normal. And then next 2-3 days, again I'll go down. So one of my friends, he was a devotee in Sri Sampradaya. He was my roommate. So he gave me a version of Bhagavad Gita. It had only the translation of the verses. So I was reading. Nothing appealed to me as much as this particular section, 19 to 42. And Prabhupada says, people who are materialistic, who can't really understand the science of transcendence, for them it will appeal. I thought like, yeah, I tick the box. But when I read some of this, I was convinced if a person can speak like this, he must be God. You know, some of the things which Krishna uses of all types of gambling, what does he say? Yes, of all secrets, I'm silence. Like, how else can you precisely define the most important secret or most qualifying attribute of a secret? Silence. Correct? Of all types of cheating, I'm gambling. When I read that, I was convinced if a person speaks like this, he got to be God. I had seen Himalayas before. Krishna says of immovable objects, I'm Himalayas. You can relate to. Especially people who come from materialistic background, we can instantly relate to. And for most of us, it's only that on reverence aspect that would kick in first. Then the sweetness kicks in after that. So this knowledge, when we get to know about Krishna from the lotus lips of Krishna, it would evoke that level of seriousness in our heart. It will make us understand how great Krishna is. It will make us understand how important it is for us to cultivate this relationship with Krishna. Okay, we'll quickly go through. The personality of God had said, yes, I will tell you of my splendorous manifestations, but only of those which are prominent, O Arjuna, for my opulence is limitless. So Krishna is saying his opulences are limitless. So he's just going to touch on few. So 21. Of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of lights, I am the radiant sun. Of the Maruts, I am Marichi. And among the stars, I am the moon. Usually the whole sky, it's divided into 12 zodiacs. Each zodiac is actually manned by or controlled by one Aditya. So there are 12 Adityas. Among them, Krishna is saying he is Vishnu. Of lights, I am radiant sun. Of Maruts, Marichi. And among the stars, I'm the moon. So Prabhupada is saying, Nakshatranam aham shashi. So among all the stars, he is moon. So Prabhupada is saying, many people say that in this world there are multiple suns, but Prabhupada said there's only one source of light, which is sun. Every other object just reflects the light. Light of the sun. And moon also, Prabhupada says, it is a star. Maruts. Some other time. Of the Vedas, I am Samaveda. Of the demigods, well, Maruts, in short, they control the wind. Of the Vedas, I am Samaveda. Of the demigods, I am Indra, the king of heaven. Of the senses, I am mind. And in living beings, I am the living force, consciousness. Prabhupada says of the Vedas, Samaveda. Samaveda is always talks about glorification of the Supreme Lord. It's very sweet to hear. So Krishna is saying he is the Veda in that. Of demigods, he is Indra, king of heaven. And of all the senses, he is the mind. Mind is the most powerful of all senses. 23, there are 11 Rudras. Of all the 11 Rudras, Krishna says he is Shiva. So Krishna keeps listing all of this. Let's go to verse 31. Of purifiers, I am wind. Of the wielders of weapons, I am Rama. Of fishes, I am Shak. And of flowing rivers, I am Ganges. So it's mentioned that Lord Ram's arrow never misses its target. Of wielders of weapons, I am Lord Ram. Lord Ram's weapon never misses its target. Usually, Lord Ram is Maryada Purushottam. He follows everything to the dot, rules. So if he shoots an arrow at an enemy, it goes, pierces the body of the enemy. But now the arrow is actually tainted with blood. But Lord Ram will, whenever he invokes the mantra, when he shoots the arrow, he will also invoke the mantra on that weapon. So as soon as it penetrates the body of the enemy, it goes out. Now it's tainted with blood, which means it's muchi, it's impure. Then it will go, take a holy dip in each of the rivers. Om Purnavadam, he goes dips, and then finally it comes again back to his quiver. So Lord Ram's, in the whole history of Ramayana, if you actually see, it never misses the target. So Krishna says, of all the wielders of weapon, he is Lord Ram. And Prabhupada also says he's shark also. Makara Kundala. Krishna also wears shark-shaped rings. It's called Makara Kundala. Of all the types of aquatics, he's saying, or rather fishes, Krishna is saying he's the shark. Of all creations, I'm the beginning, end, and also the middle. O Arjuna, of all sciences, I'm spiritual science of the self. And among logicians, I'm the conclusive truth. Now, if you see the translation, it's given Vada Pravadatam. Vada means that's like the knockout statement, basically. Any argument you go, the final argument which you actually make, that clinches defeat, or that clinches victory rather, from the opponent's side, that is Vada. That's like the knockout statement. That is Vada. So Krishna is saying, in any argument, he's that final argument. Of letters, I am the letter A. It's interesting. Every Sanskrit word will have the alphabet A. You go through, that's an exercise. You go through the transliteration of the entire Gita verses, you will always find A in every word in it. Okay? Among compound words, I'm the dual compound. Compound word means like Rama, Krishna, where both the words have equal weightage. Father, son, Rama, Krishna. So that's compound word. So Krishna is saying of all the complicated words, he's compound word. I'm also inexhaustible time. Time is the thing that exhausts everything, but time alone doesn't get exhausted. Okay? Everything, if you see over a period of time, it will exhaust. Could be your enthusiasm, could be your energy, could be anything. Could be your interest in something. Could be the lifetime of anything. Time always snatches away, except its own self. So on and so forth. So Krishna, towards the end, he will summarize all these opulences. From 39 to 42, Krishna will give a summary of all these opulences. So 39, if you go, furthermore, O Arjuna, I am the generating seed of all existences. There is no being, moving or non-moving, that can exist without me. O mighty conqueror of enemies, there is no end to my divine manifestations. What I have spoken to you is but a mere indication of my infinite opulences. And then he sums up, know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Which means everything that is glorious, everything that is worthy of taking note of in this world, Krishna is saying, I'm that. And that's how Krishna finishes this chapter. This last section, verse 19 to 42, it's very interesting. Purports are not long, you can just read them. But just to focus on the beauty of how he presents himself about his opulences. You will see Krishna clearly picking out only the most perfect in everything. Among Vrishnis, I am Krishna. I am among Pandavas, I am Arjuna. He picks each one. He just picks the best of everything. And Krishna says, they are just a spark of my splendor. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations. Usually when Krishna gives this opulence, we usually get attracted to this opulence naturally. We have a certain notion about what is good and bad for us, even in our lives also. So we see all these opulences and he says, all right, so Krishna is saying he's the best of everything. That means Krishna is also going to give me the best. True? But Krishna is also going to give me. Krishna says of all riches he is this, so Krishna is going to give me wealth also. Now, that may not be fully true. Many times when we offer prayers to Krishna, Krishna will always give us a favorable response. It may not be necessarily pleasant. Like a doctor having to cut the body to actually do a surgery to remove a tumor, Prabhupada says. So similarly, sometimes when Krishna gives benediction, it may not be very apparent that it is to our favor. In Puranas, there is a story. In one particular village, there are two devotees. One is a rich man, and the other one is a very poor lady. The poor lady maintains her life simply by maintaining a cow. Now, Narada tells to Vishnu to bless them. So Vishnu says, all right, I will bless both of them. So to the rich man, he gives more riches. And to the poor old lady, he just snatches the cow away. And Narada Muni gets perplexed. And he says, like, I asked you to benedict, What is this? So then Vishnu explains that for the person who knows how to engage all my wealth in my service, he knows that the more wealth I actually give, he sees me as the source of wealth, and that's going to deepen his conviction more and more and more. He's going to be dependent on me more and more and more. On the other hand, the only way how this old lady is actually maintaining herself is by maintaining this cow. If I take that away, now she has nowhere else to go. Where will she go now? I'll be the ultimate shelter. So both of them, the effect is the same, which is they come one step closer to Krishna. However, the way how Krishna fulfills that favor, fulfills that prayer is slightly different. So many times we go, Prabhupada himself tells about his own life, Krishna, he took everything away from me first, and then he gave everything back, multiplied million folds, Prabhupada says. I gave up my family, but Krishna has brought me unlimited sons and daughters, Prabhupada says that. So we need to understand Krishna's opulence, when it actually descends upon us, we have to see, ultimately, Krishna will always do what is best for us. He'll always do. We need to have that conviction in our heart. But how exactly it's gonna come into action, come into fruition, that it may vary. Only Krishna knows. Only Krishna knows the details. Okay, so we need to have that conviction. Simply holding on to that conviction, simply hearing, and by associating, we will have unshakable faith. And with that, we'll be able to follow this process with much, much more conviction, with much, much more enthusiasm. And that's very much important. Any questions?
In the handout, Surrender unto Thee, in reference to 11, it says here, the Lord enters his devotee's heart specifically into the Lotus flower. I absolutely love this. I've read this so many times, and I sort of thought about it quite a bit. But when I went to the actual text, it read, and I think we mentioned it today, super soul, impartial. So I kind of got a bit confused around how this sentence actually related to that text, and actually maybe I didn't understand this sentence at all.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to the summary. Section B, Chaturshloki. If you go to point 4. So the essence of Gita is stated in the 4 verses, so that's how it goes. The point 4, it says, the devotee's real intelligence, which overcomes the ignorance caked on his heart by millions of birds, is awarded by Krishna, as described in text 11. The Lord enters his devotee's heart just as a bee enters a lotus flower. Now, if you read the 10.11 verse, Tesham Yavanu Kampartam Aham Agyana Jamtamaha, that was to show them special favor, I, dwelling in their heart, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So Krishna is actually using an analogy here to explain how he's going to wipe out these layers of ignorance which we have been accruing in our heart across multiple births. For that, the analogy which Krishna uses here in this particular verse is just like when you actually bring a lamp of knowledge, just like when you bring a lamp into a dark room, that one single lamp, it illuminates every nook and corner of the knowledge. So similarly, when Krishna gives this knowledge about himself, knowledge about how he is taking care of his devotees as Bhagavan, this 8 to 11 is not necessarily about Krishna. It's not about Paramatma. Usually, when any living entity who is born in this world, when he is embodied, there are 2 living entities in our body. One is the soul and the other is the super soul. However, as soon as we chant Hare Krishna, in Chaitanya Charitamrita it's explained, as soon as we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna himself will come and he'll replace Paramatma. So in your heart, there's no Paramatma anymore. It's Krishna. Now when Krishna comes, if you read the concluding verses of, you can read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, concluding verses of entire Chaitanya Charitamrita, last final verses. Prabhupada, when he finishes the book, he says if Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was around, it would be a great occasion of celebration. However, the spiritual master, Supreme Lord, along with all his associates, they are residing in our heart. It's not just even Krishna. The entire Gopa, Gopi, Radha, Krishna, the entire spiritual world, Prabhupada is saying, they are residing in our heart. As soon as a person takes the shelter of Krishna. In previous chapter also, we saw in 9:13, Mahatmanastu Mampartha. Usually, you have seen this picture like a puppet show. The 3 modes of nature controlling it. Actually, if you see, in that particular verse, Acharyas have actually written commentary, where as soon as a person comes and takes shelter of Krishna, Mahamaya will actually hand over the reins to Yogamaya. At that point, Radharani controls actually. So whatever that happens, it's externally it looks like a karma acting on us, but it's actually Krishna who is actually acting on it. That's why I was concluding the class with that point, but Krishna's love may not be to our liking. Krishna's is like tough love in one sense. He tries to say like, hey, do this, but still people are so atheist, they don't want to turn towards him. All right, what can I do? I have to meet you as death. So he has to meet them. Krishna is extremely patient across multiple births. You can understand how patient Krishna must be. Okay, so Krishna in this case, so in the heart of all devotees, whoever chants Hare Krishna, Krishna himself walks in and he replaces Paramatma. It's no longer Paramatma. Okay? Hare Krishna. But when we say Hridesha Arduna Tistati, that's in general. Paramatma resides there. But for us, Krishna resides there. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu resides there. Read the ending, concluding section of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada explains that in the purport. Any other question? Moon is known to be a satellite as per modern science, not as per Vedic science. Krishna says moon is a star. How do we understand? We understand Krishna. Okay. While speaking about opulences, Prabhupada said, okay, you want an argument? I'll quote from one conversation of Prabhupada. Prabhupada says they have never landed in moon. And they say, no, they landed in the moon. Well, if they have brought the dust, you see moon is shining. Why is the dust dark? Prabhupada is asking. Which means, according to this argument, it is supposed to be self-effulgent, correct? Going by that argument, if they had actually even landed on the moon, what they brought wasn't actually, it's not like radium or something. It's just like normal dust. Okay. While speaking about opulences, Krishna mentions many names who are jivas. How do we understand this? Good question. Krishna is saying he is the most defining attribute. He's the most, he's the best of everyone and everything. Basically, that's what Krishna is saying. Okay? Krishna is not saying that person becomes me. When Krishna says among the Pandavas, I'm Arjuna, it doesn't mean Arjuna becomes Krishna. That's Mayavada. That's not what Krishna is saying. But Krishna is saying what makes Arjuna special. That is Krishna. What makes shark special? That is Krishna. What makes gambling special? You know, the most defining element, the most defining attribute. That is Krishna. That's how we understand. Okay? All right, we'll finish here. One quick announcement. So tomorrow, as we were discussing last week, tomorrow we have Bhakti Sangam Festival. We are meeting in Pennant Hills. It starts at 9:30. Sri Prahlad Prabhu will be there. He'll be leading the kirtan, and then he'll give a short talk. We'll be doing a series of presentations about the different initiatives we are undertaking, or we have started to embark on. So you'll come to know some updates about things which we have already started. You will come to know about different opportunities, how you can also take part in each one of those initiatives. You'll also understand about what's our roadmap for rest of the year. This is the first of the biannual event, inaugural biannual event. So we'll meet now and we'll meet 6 months from now. So that's the plan from now on. Because this is the first time we are going to discuss more on the presentations, initiatives and everything. But in future, we want to keep it more Krishna Katha gathering, wherein we do more chanting, hearing, glorification sessions and everything. Okay, do you have the video ready? Krishna Kumar Prabhu, he made a short video. We forwarded that. Some of you might have seen it. It's in Facebook. We can't wait for long. Kamsari Prabhu. Okay, it's in Facebook. You can have a look. We don't want to put you on hold there. Is Prashadam ready? It's there in the restaurant area. Thank you so much. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki, Samaveda Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Right. So, quick question. I have to go to Singapore for a week and a bit, so obviously I'll get the stuff. Where can I watch the